So apparently Max Verstappen isn't too fussed about individual accolades at this point in his Formula 1 career, or so he says himself. We've seen very little of the Dutchman on racing Sundays this season, with the Red Bull car so dominant and Verstappen often driving alone out in front, away from the action behind him. And it hardly came as a shock this season to see him smashing through Sebastian Vettel's record for the longest streak of consecutive race victories, as he hit the double-digit mark of 10 straight wins. And yet, with 38 wins in the last 60 Grand Prix, Verstappen isn't too worried about personal accolades and records being broken, with the 26-year-old more bothered about the long-term success of his team in the sport, although that also does include winning the Odd Drivers World Championship here and there. After waving away the idea of being motivated by such individual records that he's breaking, Verstappen added, "I just want to do the best I can every single time I'm in the car. And if that means that you break a record, okay, great. But it's more important what you are doing and achieving. At the end of the day, my goal this year is to win the championship." And that is all but inevitable, with the Red Bull driver holding the unique opportunity to become the first driver in history to win a world championship on a sprint race rather than a Grand Prix as we head to Qatar. Now, leading Sergio Perez by 177 points with 180 left on the table this season, only a Perez win in the sprint race on Saturday in Qatar, combined with Verstappen finishing 7th or lower, will delay the inevitable third straight championship for the Dutchman. So a moment of history is on the table this weekend as Qatar returns to the calendar. It will take around a decade to see a female driver on the grid in Formula 1. That's at least the expectation of Jessica Hawkins, the Aston Martin ambassador, who became the first woman in 5 years to participate in an F1 test drive when she stepped into the car in September. The former W Series driver took 26 laps around the Hungaroring earlier this year in Aston Martin's 2021 car, the AMR 21. Being the first female to hit the tarmac in an F1 car since Tatiana Calderon, who was involved in an Alfa Romeo test back in 2018. And while the achievement Hawkins has made is clearly a positive step for women racing in the sport, she still feels the sport is a long way off actually seeing a female driver line up on the grid in an F1 race. Realistically, for sure, I don't think it's going to be within the next 2 or 3 years, unfortunately, said Hawkins to the Sky F1 podcast. Which hurts me to say it, but being honest, I think that's probably right. I think we've previously had females that are good enough. We've had females that have had the backing behind them. But have we had a female that's had the full package? I'm not sure, but I think what this F1 Academy will do is create the opportunity for a female with every single piece of the puzzle that is needed. The F1 Academy that she's discussing is an all-female single-seater series run by Formula 1 that looks to be a breeding ground for female talent to help them take the next step into F3 and beyond. With managing director Susie Wolf helping the program, it seems the backing and system is being put in place to give women a chance to find that opportunity on track in Formula 1. And finally, if you didn't know already, we've heard it a lot, apparently Daniel Ricciardo is the favourite to take Sergio Perez's job at Red Bull Racing alongside Max Verstappen for 2024. F1.com have used the quiet spell of news this week to once more bring out the tried and tested headline that Sergio Perez is under pressure at Red Bull, before adding the usual tag on the end of it, suggesting that sources reveal that Danny Ricciardo is the man in line to take the Mexican driver's job. Now, Perez has been struggling again this season with the car, with just 2 race victories to his name and the poor Saturday performances this year. Add to that the return of Ricciardo with the sister team AlphaTauri, and all signs point towards a switch around at the constructors, or Perez just walking away from Red Bull altogether, or perhaps Red Bull walking away from Perez altogether. But we know that Sergio right now is kind of the perfect driver for Verstappen to have as his partner. He's not close to the Dutchman yet on track. Red Bull still have a comfortable lead in the Constructors' title battle that they've already wrapped up this year with 6 races to go. Perez isn't competing with his teammate or spreading dysfunction through the ranks. They're not driving wheel to wheel on a Sunday like the Mercedes drivers are, or perhaps the McLaren drivers soon will be. So let's see if Ricciardo is the man to play number 2 to Verstappen, or perhaps if Perez's perpetual state of pressure is actually a way of keeping him on his toes with the team when we get to the driver lineups next season. You'll be able to stick with us and all of the news in Formula 1 until the 2024 campaign, of course here at GPFans Global, GPFans Global across social media as well, and gpfans.com for all the latest headlines in Formula 1.